Up to the 30, the 20, 10, 5. Torrey Horton back to the end zone.
48-yard play. Guess who? Body up the middle, making another move to the outside. 15, 10, end zone again.
Keeps it. Nice move by Brown. He's got space. He's got 6. 35-yard touchdown for Byron Brown. A record-setting night for the South Florida quarterback.
Third down so far. A little bit of a high snap. Genty right up the middle. Genty has room. Ashton Genty. Give him 6.
Second and long. Lagar tries to pin it in. Runnels. It does. Runnels stays up. The Suns offense 4-3 wheels. Incredible effort for Runnels.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live, and we are excited to bring you another G5 college football coverage week that you love each and every week. I butchered that. It's been a long day. It has been a week for this Monday, but I am Luke. I am joined by my co-host, Justice. Another week down, Justice. Another ODU football game attended. Like you mentioned, this one kind of played out the way you thought. I got to know, ODU press coverage, and you go into that press conference, were you able to get down there sooner?
I was down there super early this time.
Okay.
Of course, the game had a lot to do with that, right? It was not. I mean, it was a competitive game up until I guess midway through the third quarter, in terms of score, anyway. At halftime, I think it was 14-10. Yeah, it got away pretty quick, and I think with about 5 minutes left, I walked down and to make sure I could get down there in time, and yeah, just took a seat in the press conference. So I was there the whole time. I actually had a question lined up, but first of all, like, you got to be really aggressive. Because like the local CBS, Fox, all those guys, they're like, as soon as he walks in, they're kind of like shouting, right? And so you either got to be super aggressive or kind of wait till maybe like the end when it kind of slows down. Like, you don't want to be like, I guess not the first one, right? Because all those guys are kind of like trying to talk over each other. So you kind of wait till that calms down a little bit, but. The question I had, one of those guys was like the first question they asked. So,
I need a good question.
It was a good question, yeah. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I need to come up with like some standard canned questions to kind of ask. And, so far the questions I've had have always been very game dependent, and they've been asked. So the question I wanted to ask this week was, Grant Wilson was injured, did not start. He was dressed out. He did not play. So redshirt freshman Colton Joseph got the start. He played 2 series. At the very end of that second series, he made a freshman mistake. He was about to get sacked, and he tried to just kind of flip the ball to somebody, and I thought it was a forward pass. They called it a fumble. ODU recovered it, so it didn't really matter in the big scheme of things, but like, it was a bad decision, right? He should just, at that point, should have just taken the sack, I guess. Well, he got yanked. And I wasn't sure, did he get hurt on the sack? Did he actually get yanked? I tried to find him on the sidelines. So they inserted true freshman Quinn Henicle, who, from my understanding, hadn't really got a lot of reps with the first team. That was all given to Colton Joseph. So he was kind of like, playing with the first team in a game, which is not a good thing. He did give him a little bit of a spark. He had on an RPO play, he had like a 65-yard touchdown run. So he has some wheels. He can run the ball. But he's not very poised in the pocket, not a very good passer. They had 35 yards passing halfway through the third quarter. That's just not going to get it done. But anyway, I wanted to ask, hey, did Joseph get hurt, or did Quinn? Was it the plan all along? Was it an in-game decision to insert Quinn Henicle, or was that the plan all along? And apparently that was the plan all along. And so the
No
weird
offense, but
thing,
it seems like a dumb
well,
play.
it was a dumb play. And what confused me even more is like I had a very hard time finding Colton Joseph on the sideline. After that, like I was looking for, I figured, after Quinn kind of didn't play so great in the third quarter, maybe they'd go back to Colton. But I could not find him on the sideline. So then I thought, well, maybe he got hurt, and that's what happened. But I asked other folks that they noticed, and they said, well, we weren't really looking for him on the sideline. So I don't know. But anyway, that was my question. I thought of some other questions, I guess, after the fact, but I'll save those questions for the next home game if it's still a problem. But yeah, the play calling is just on offense is just horrendous. There was like there's no crossing plays. I only remember one passing play across the middle, or where a receiver actually ran across the middle of the field, and then he dropped the ball. But someone else said there was only 4. Nonetheless, that's not a lot of plays across the middle. Everything's like to the sidelines, and that just is like, to me, that's a hard throw. It's I guess a less riskier throw, right? Because there's not so many people in the way. But it just seems like a much harder throw for a young quarterback. I would like to see like some quick slants and stuff, but it's not what happened. So we'll see. I got a month to work on my questions. There's not another home game until October 19th, so I got some time.
Billy Tuesday, welcome to the chat. Love to have you here as always. Keep that chat buzzing, guys. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, or retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Now let's move on to our G5 Players of the Week freshman offense. I took running back Fluff Bothwell, South Alabama, rushed for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns to lead the Jaguars to their first victory in 2024. Fluff, although not the starter at running back, yet, he has led the Jaguars running backs in rushing yards in each of the first 3 weeks. His real name is Demarion, but earned the nickname Fluff from his family because he was such a big baby, weighing in at 11 pounds at birth. Fluff, anything but Fluff, is a 3-star recruit and a top 100 running back in the class. He had a prolific career in high school, rushing for over 3,000 yards and 41 touchdowns as a junior, and added over 2,000 yards and 32 touchdowns as a senior. Yes, you heard that correctly. That's over 5,000 yards alone in just his final 2 years in high school. Certainly a player with a bright future ahead.
All right, moving on to the defensive freshman of the week, and that is safety C.J. Hurd from Florida Atlantic. He had 6 tackles, 4 solos, and a fumble recovery to lead the Owls in the victory over rival Florida International. C.J. was making his first start for the Owls in 2024. He is a true freshman. He played really well. He played in the previous 2 games, but did not start. So this was his first start. He was a 3-star composite player. He originally committed to Florida State before decommitting and going to Florida Atlantic. He is well known for his House of Dragons-esque hair and has earned him the nickname Sea Snake. As it reminds many of the House of Dragons fans of Star Lord Corlys Velaryon, whose nickname in the show is also the Sea Snake. And CJ was a preseason true freshman All-American by 24/7 Sports, and he's certainly earning that here with his play for the Owls in 2024.
Offensive player of the week. I selected wide receiver Ted Hurst, Georgia State. Again, keep the theme rolling of a G5 opponent over a P4 opponent. He had 7 receptions for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus the game-winning catch to beat Vandy, the first time the Panthers have defeated an SEC team since 2019 when they beat Tennessee.
All right, staying on the offensive side of things, I also picked a player with a big win over the P4, and that's quarterback Tucker Gleason from Toledo. This week, he threw for 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, rushed for another 40 yards to lead the Rockets to that huge G5 versus P4 victory over SEC Mississippi State in week 3 with a 41-17 win. We'll get into it later, but huge win for the Toledo Rockets there in week 3.
And then
staying with my defense, Luke and I talked about this, picking 2 players from the same team, but they both played outstanding. They both deserve it. So for my defensive player of the week was linebacker Georgia State, who was also critical in that win over Vanderbilt. He had 8 tackles, 5 solos, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups to help lead the Panthers defense with that G5 over P4 victory, beating SEC Vanderbilt in week 3, 36-32.
And then I picked linebacker Sean Dolak, Buffalo. He had 16 total tackles, 8 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses, and 1 pass deflection as Buffalo beats UMass 34-3. I don't know. Anytime you put up double-digit tackles, it's something that catches my eye. And a dominant win against UMass there for the Bulls.
And we'll talk about Sean Dolak a little bit more later on in our 2020 players, man. But I was digging into the statistics today, and he has an unbelievable solo rate. But we'll talk about that more later.
All right. Well, Justice, why don't you give us, what the Swarm needs to know?
All right. So some news and notes for the G5 college football world. The first thing to kind of start off with is G5 in the top 25. Once again, Northern Illinois is kind of holding up the G5 in terms of, ranking. They're the only G5 schools still are currently ranked. They debuted last week at number 25. They are up to number 23 this week. Others receiving votes include Memphis, which would be number 26, Boise State, number 28, UNLV, number 29. Should be noted they were number 38 last week, Liberty at 36, and Toledo at number 38. Now, I want to spend a few moments talking about this AP Top 25 poll because it really burns me, man. I don't for the life of me, what does UNLV have to do, right? They've gotten 2 wins over Power 4 schools. They're undefeated, and they're only 29th. Memphis and Boise State deserve to be ranked as well. Memphis goes down to Tallahassee, beats Florida State in Tallahassee. I understand Florida State's not great, but they did what they were supposed to do, right? They went to a Power 4 school on the road and beat that school. UNLV, Memphis, and Boise State 100% deserve to be ranked. In addition to Northern Illinois, it just the disrespect just kind of it really pisses me off, quite frankly. I don't know. What do you think, Luke?
I mean, I would agree. I haven't looked at the other teams in there, but I would guarantee there's some SEC bias. There's probably some Big Ten bias of people that, there's, I guess, give me a chance here to look up the top 25. But I'm guessing there are some teams that could drop out that you could put Memphis, who's 26, just on the outside looking in. UNLV got that big bump going from 38 last week to 29. I am sure there are some teams there.
The teams that kind of stick out to me that I don't necessarily think belong there. Notre Dame, they actually went up a rank. They were still 18 after the loss to Northern Illinois. They went up to 17. Michigan still ranked at number 18. I don't think Michigan is a top 25 team this year on offense anyway. Some others that kind of stand out. Illinois, they're undefeated, but they're in at number 24. Texas A&M 2-1 at number 25. I don't think the two of those teams deserve to be ranked at this point in the season. So yeah, like you said though, it's a lot of Big Ten and SEC bias at this point. And I don't know. It just kind of irritates me because I just don't think those teams deserve that.
like Nebraska being at 3-0, they're at 22. Like, could you just bump everybody up one spot and have Memphis there at 25? Like, I would be okay with that. Like, Nebraska's there because it's the Nebraska name, and Nebraska's back. Um, I don't envision.
They haven't beaten
Clemson
anybody.
Clemson hasn't looked great. Michigan can't even throw the ball.
Nebraska beat UTEP, they beat Colorado, and they beat Northern Iowa. Like, those aren't very good teams.
And then,
And so, yeah.
Texas A&M is just in it because of being in the SEC. Like, Texas A&M is not a great team. So,
No,
sure, you put them up against Memphis, maybe it would be tough, but I don't know.
Their 2 wins are McNeese State and Florida, and then they lost to Notre Dame in week 1, who conversely lost to Northern Illinois. But yeah,
Transitive property.
Illinois' wins aren't great. They beat Eastern Illinois. They did beat Kansas, which UNLV also just beat Kansas, and they beat Central Michigan. Again, like nothing like super impressive. So I don't know. Like, to me, UNLV, Memphis, and Boise State should be ranked along with Northern Illinois. But that's just, I don't know. It's pretty typical for these types of polls to be biased against the G5, and like you said, slanted towards the Big Ten and the SEC. The next probably the biggest piece of news this week is the Pac-12, man. Like, it's we've talked about the Pac-12 in the offseason. It's the Pac-2 right now, Oregon State and Washington State, but they announced this week that Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State will be joining Oregon State and Washington State in the Pac-12 starting with the 2026-2027 academic year. So that's two years from now. It'll give the Pac-12 6 members, but they need to have at least 8 by then. They have to have those 8. If they don't get the 8, they're not any better off than they are today. I personally don't think it doesn't matter. Like, actually, they're worse off because they won't even be recognized as a conference, I guess. They have to have at least 8 members. So they'll lose all their access. But, there's a lot of money involved here and a lot of rumors about who the other teams are going to be invited. So the Mountain West schools that are leaving, those 4 schools, they have to pay the Mountain West at least $18 million apiece. It could be more. That's the exit fee. And why I say it could be more is because that's the exit fee if you give 2 years notice. Well, they didn't quite give 2 years notice. It's close to 2 years, but it's a couple months short of 2 years. So in theory, the Mountain West could pay them more money. But at the very least, each of those schools is going to owe the Mountain West $18 million apiece. Additionally, the Pac-12 will owe the Mountain West $40 million for poaching those schools. That, if you remember, we talked about the scheduling deal between the Pac-2 and the Mountain West this year. That was part of that agreement, that if the Pac-12 either had to take everybody, or if they took only certain schools, then they would have to pay a poaching fee of $40 million. So, the Mountain West is going to get a large amount of money here, unless like every single school from the Mountain West goes to the Pac-12. That's not really being talked about. The primary names that I've being heard thrown around to join the Pac-12 are Tulane and Memphis from the American. Right, they're 2 of the top teams in the American, and then UTEP and New Mexico State from Conference USA. That kind of makes sense, right? They're the furthest, I guess, West teams. But if you're going to take New Mexico State and UTEP, you'd think maybe they would just take more Mountain West teams with them. And then, of course, UNLV from the Mountain West is another one I've heard thrown around. But interesting. The one thing I would say about this is I think the Pac-12 really thinks that they're going to go back to getting an automatic berth. And I don't see that happening. Like, why would the other 4 conferences agree to do that? I just don't think they would. I think they would say, no, you're going to be in the G5 like everybody else. Like, there's no guarantee they're going to get the automatic berth back. And I frankly don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see.
Who knows? I mean, conference realignment, like, it doesn't really matter who goes where, but it makes sense for them to want UNLV just to have Vegas, have that area regionality. It would make sense to have Tulane and have Louisiana just for recruiting purposes, where people go down to Tulane and can watch some of those recruits done in Louisiana. So those two make sense for sure in just the sense of what it means to that conference and recruiting and stuff. Because then you got the whole West Coast, and then you've got Louisiana. And then if you want to do Memphis, you've got that Tennessee, Georgia area that you could wander around.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense what they're trying to do, right? It's like they're basically trying to build a super conference of the G5, if you will, to kind of, I think, to entice them to be able to get that automatic berth back. I just don't, I don't personally see that happening, but I guess it could. Billy has an interesting question. So would the American get a more lucrative media deal than this new pack? I don't know. I think it really depends on what happens, right? Like, if Memphis and Tulsa leave the American, I think it's going to swing things in favor of the Pac-12 in terms of that media deal, and drop the American down. The Americans lost a lot of members over the last, I don't know, I guess 2 years, right? They lost several, got several to the Big 12. They lost SMU to the ACC, and they backfilled those slots with Conference USA teams. And so I don't know that, in my opinion, the AAC has positioned itself really well in terms of being the top G5. I think if Pac-12 can get Memphis and Tulane, I'm assuming they're going to stay. They'll become a G5. I don't think that they're going to get the automatic berth, and I think that immediately puts them in play to be the top G5. Now, the other G5 conferences, I think, are gonna might push back on that, right? They might be pushing to say, hey, give these guys an automatic berth, because they don't want the quote G5 collective berth always going to the Pac-12. So maybe those guys will be push hard enough that they'll get the P4 teams to recognize the Pac-12 as a quote P5. I don't know, but it'll be talked about a lot over the course of the next 2 years, and trying to see who the Pac-12 will add to kind of bring them up to that 8. Like I said, they have to get to the 8 by that 2026 season. So stay tuned. We'll keep you guys informed on the rumors and what we're hearing. I know, like, I heard some rumors today, like Memphis is probably is a hot name. That there is some traction to Memphis going to that Pac-12. So we'll see. All right, moving on to some player news this week and some injury news here. Once again, I talked about Old Dominion earlier, but All-American linebacker Jason Henderson did not play this week against Virginia Tech. He was not dressed. I did tweet that out from our account once I saw that. Quarterback Grant Wilson also did not play, but he was dressed. He had a pretty large brace on his elbow. They do have a bye week this week, so we'll see if he can get right for 2 weeks from now when they play MacFo Bowling Green. Tight end John Michael Gillenborg from Wyoming returned to action in week 3, but he did not get the start, and he only played 9 snaps, had no targets in the game. So just good. I guess good to see him back out there. Hopefully it's gonna, he's working his way back into to game shape and to be ready for the Wyoming Cowboys for their next game. Quarterback Bertie Manuel Jr., Central Michigan, was upgraded on the MAC availability report from out to questionable, but he also did not play in week 3. North Texas running back Akaika Ragsdale did not play in week 3. and Memphis linebacker Elijah Herring did not play versus Florida State in Week 3. Kind of a big loss for them, but they still were able to pull out that big win against Florida State. Colorado State wide receiver Torrey Horton, he was questionable, but he did play in Week 3. He was just not super effective in that game, so definitely still kind of bothered by that injury. And much to our surprise, both Luke and I, South Alabama quarterback Gio Lopez returned and started that game Week 3. He had a turf toe injury, and he played really well. I think we thought he wasn't going to play. Right, they were playing an FCS opponent. Figured they
were not a very good FCS opponent, and they put up like 80+ points. I mean,
yes, and they eventually put Bishop Davenport in, but it was pretty late in the game when that happened. And so I don't know. I think everything made sense that they would sit him again and give him
App State this week.
Exactly, they give him a full 2 weeks of rest, but I guess he was good to go, and they let him play. So, but definitely a little bit of a surprise there. Buffalo wide receiver Nick McMillan did not play against UMass this past weekend. Moving over to North Texas, wide receiver Damon Ward left the game with Texas Tech due to injury. Not sure what that injury was at this point. There's also, like, some folks ask about DT Sheffield, and he played in the game, but he was they had a good game plan. They effectively Texas Tech effectively shut DT Sheffield down and really did a number on North Texas as a whole. And we'll get to that later. Probably the biggest injury news from this week, I would say, Liberty running back Quentin Cooley left the game Saturday with the leg injury, and early speculation is that it is not good. That doesn't look good. Doesn't look like he's going to be back anytime soon. I'm sure there's going to be probably an MRI or something they're waiting for. So kind of stay tuned on that front. But Quentin Cooley, like, if it wasn't for him, they would have lost the game against New Mexico State 2 weeks ago. So that's going to be a big blow for Liberty if Cooley is going to miss an extended part of the season here. Moving over to Utah State, wide receiver Jalen Royals left with injury. The same with Kyrie's White in Week 3, and Brock Lane, tight end, also got hurt. I think the general feeling is that White and Brock Lane may play this week. Jalen Royals probably not. Is that right, Luke?
That's what it seems like. Early indications. I mean, it is Monday, but they go to Temple this week. We're still trying to figure out the exact injury for Royals. I saw one report that said it was a head injury. Saw another that kind of disputed that. So I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we'll see if Jalen Royals is able to suit up this week. But I think there's a chance that he doesn't. And in that case, I think Kyrie's White could have a big game. It sounds like he'll be ready to go for this game. It'll either be run the ball a lot and get out of there without injuries, or Kyrie's White could have that big game.
Another big injury this week. Well, it's a big injury in terms of name, but he wasn't necessarily playing, I think, very well. He might have lost the job anyway. But TJ Finley, quarterback for Western Kentucky, left the game with the injury. He was seen on the sideline with crutches. He's expected to miss several weeks, ankle, lower leg injury. But Caden Veltkamp came in and looked really, really good. I think it's 2 weeks in a row where he's kind of coming in and look really, really good. So I'm not sure about Finley's hold on the job, but Finley, hurt, not good.
I think Finley can keep that job based off of what I'm hearing around Western Kentucky. They kind of really want him to have that job. They brought him in as a transfer. Veltkamp, they said where they're going to move you to tight end. It just kind of seems like they don't want Veltkamp to be that guy. But this is going to be his chance. It looks like a maybe a high ankle sprain. He got rolled up on. I'm trying to remember the picture. It'd be like his left ankle. Maybe it was his right ankle, I believe, got rolled up on. So that's your plant leg there. And, maybe that's 6 weeks where we get Veltkamp. I mean, that's majority of the rest of the season. Or maybe he's out there after like 3 weeks and ineffective at running. I mean, it's not like Finley was like running the ball a whole bunch anyways. But it kind of seems like TJ Finley could get that job back. And I don't know if it's just stubbornness or whatnot, because like it hasn't looked good in the last several weeks. So I think if Veltkamp like shows out, then I think he's going to get the job. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that no matter what happens, Veltkamp has the job, even when TJ Finley's healthy. So I think there's some room to wiggle there.
Troy quarterback Will Goose Crowder. He was thought to be probable this past week with a shoulder injury, but he did not play in week 3. So hopefully we'll see him here coming up for Troy in week 4. San Diego State quarterback Danny O'Neal did not play in week 3 as he's recovering from a knee injury. The interesting thing, I guess, is that AJ Duffy did not get to start, and AJ Duffy did not play. It was Javon Stupiata Johnson, and he didn't look great. So I don't know that Danny O'Neal necessarily has anything to worry about in terms of losing that job. But stay tuned to see if O'Neal can go in the next game here for San Diego State. Charlotte quarterback Deshaun Purdy making his first start for the injured Max Brown, who got hurt the previous week. Well, Deshaun Purdy got hurt on Saturday, left the game with the injury. Trexler Ivy had to come in. Max Brown is considered week to week with his injury. I don't know that I would necessarily expect him back this week.
I don't think so.
But maybe in a couple weeks we'll see Max Brown. No, I haven't seen an update on Purdy to see if he's going to be able to start here in week 4. This next one's a bit of a mystery. Western Michigan running back Jalen Buckley missed his second straight game, and there's we've been digging on this. We can't find anything. Like, we asked people with boots on the ground, so to speak, and they're not hearing anything. So we're not really sure.
That's kind of concerning.
It is, but I guess it's not like, I don't know. If it was like Memphis, I would be more concerned. It's the MAC, right? And I just feel like that's par for the course in terms of the MAC. And there's not really a beat reporter that really covers Western Michigan. So we'll see. But Western Michigan does have a bye in week 4, so maybe once again they were like, hey, we rest him 2 weeks. He basically gets a month off, so to speak, before he's got to play again. So maybe that's what they were thinking of in terms of Jalen Buckley, trying to get him right for the conference season. Temple quarterback Forrest Brock did not play in week 3. He's still recovering from a head injury he suffered in week 2. We'll see if he gets cleared to play here in week 4. UConn running back Victor Rosa did not play in the game versus Duke in week 3. He has a broken finger, and that finger is going to require surgery. So he will be out for a little bit there for UConn. Utah State quarterback Spencer Petras sat out his second consecutive week with an ankle injury. And Bryson Barnes has kind of looked good, right? And so maybe, you hate to think someone would leave or someone lose their job to injury, but it happens quite often. And so I don't know, just kind of stay tuned and see if if Spencer Petras is going to get that start this coming week for Utah State, or they're going to roll with Bryson Barnes once again. And
I think Bryson Barnes has done enough to warrant another start.
He's looked okay out there for Utah State. So yeah, I mean, obviously if Petras isn't 100% there's definitely no reason to make a switch. Ball State wide receiver Ty Robinson did not play in week 3 with a shoulder injury. No update in terms of when we should expect him back. But, he got hurt last year, I think, in week 3. He missed the season. And then this year he gets hurt, I think, on the first play of scrimmage. It was in week 2, but that was Ball State's first game with that shoulder injury. And he did not play again here in week 3. So, hopefully he can get on the field here soon for Ball State, because he was all set to be the number 1 receiver for Caden Simonza in that Ball State offense. Running back Justin Marshall, Colorado State. He left the game against Colorado, but the good news is whatever it was that was bothering him, he was able to return back to the game in the fourth quarter. So it would appear, based on that whatever happened with him is kind of on the minor side of things. Arkansas State running back Cedric Hawkins is out for the season. That's a bit of a blow there for Arkansas State. I assume Zach Wallace will carry a bigger part of that load with Hawkins being out. Coastal Carolina, both Braden Bennett and Javon Simpkins, running backs, did not play in week 3. And we'll talk about this later when we get to the waiver wire stuff. But Christian Washington is basically playing really well in their absence. Coastal Carolina normally rotates their running backs, but with Bennett and Simpkins out, Christian Washington is carrying the load there. And finally, Florida Atlantic wide receiver E.J. Horton is going to be out for a while after having foot surgery, so don't expect to see him anytime soon there for the Florida Atlantic Owls.
The mute button, undefeated. Come back and join us next week as we discuss what happened in week 4, as well as look forward to week 5 of the 2024 season. And as always, we bring you up to date on all the latest news and happenings in the world of the G5 college football. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a retweet, a like, and a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and review. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.
First